Hey everybody, it's Ryan Steller with the briefing. We are talking about the wonder drug, uh, Ozempic or Wegovy or whatever. Everybody has heard about it. Kim Kardashian's like 8 billion followers are all very familiar with it, but it's actually a radically more important drug than just for vanity. Obviously, it helps with diabetes, but it also helps with things like addiction, which could play into reducing opioid dependence and fentanyl issue in the United States, and heart disease as well. So we talk about it a lot because we're trying to understand it and we want to help create access, safe access, and easy access to this category of drugs. So the classic thing is you've heard a bit about it. Maybe your friends or somebody in your life has lost weight. You start Googling. You will find TikTok and Reddit very quickly. This post on the right here is a classic example. You got a young woman. She's beautiful in both photos, obviously, but slimmer in the one on the right, and she has a semaglutide to thank. I don't know which one in particular she took, but whatever. She lost 50 pounds in 8 months. That's absolutely insane. Huge benefits for her health, obviously, but it's not that easy. If you've heard anything about this, you've also heard that many people are in the prior authorization process or frustration. Drug companies are really stressed out right now, and they're reacting in somewhat erratic ways, and they might be counteracting the prescription and care plan that your doctor has for you. And deciphering that process and adapting to it is something the entire medical community is already struggling with. And at the same time, these drugs are increasing in popularity. So everybody agree they're very popular now. It's getting bigger. It's moving. It's trending much faster. There's a new drug from Eli Lilly called I'm blanking on it. Zepbound, and which counteracts some of the side effects of earlier drugs, and that will get even more prescription. They've also done a good job of lowering the cost and increasing the supply, meaning this stuff seems like it's already everywhere, but it's gonna grow. And part of our commitment in deciphering healthcare and the science around this stuff and how your personal data plays into it is to talk about how prior authorization works a little bit, share some of the stories of the frustration, share some of the stories of frustration on the doctor's side, and then talk a little bit about the in the weeds of the technical process so that you can go into your doctor's office visit with the best knowledge in hand and do the right thing for you. So here's an example here. This is somebody who is celebrating, and this is a brand new post. So we'll just read it out for you real quick because the text might be small. I know there are so many of these posts, but I was so excited to see today that my appeal / prior auth was approved. Now, an appeal means they started the prior auth process, it was denied, and then it went through. There was subsequent activity they had to do. Is maybe taking weeks, maybe months for this to go through. So background, I had taken Mounjaro in February 2023, type 2 diabetes, lost 50 pounds, gained 40 back, which happens on these drugs. Sometimes you gain the weight back. I was thrilled when I had heard tirzepatide was approved for weight loss. I had hope again, and when my prior auth was denied, I got worried. I have EmperX, which I believe is a pharmacy benefit manager, health through my employer. They do cover weight loss meds, but Zepbound wasn't on their formulary. Formulary is a list of drugs that your insurance company has decided they want to cover, and they will inform your doctors, administrative staff about that. Their requirements were to first trial all formulary agents. So this is a bunch of other drugs, including if you see MIN or AMINE there, that's an amphetamine. So several amphetamines, and also Saxenda, which is kind of like Wegovy or semaglutide, but is an older drug called liraglutide that is for diabetes. Anyway, basically, this is a process of failing more conservative treatment. The insurance company said to this person, the user's name is parenthetical asides. I'm sure that's not the real name. Parenthetical asides, like your doctor needs to do things that are cheaper, more conservative, quote unquote, before we will cover the cost of Zepbound. Now, the question that a lot of people have is, all this friction necessary? Is it clinically relevant? And maybe is it even like ethical or legal? Like, if these drugs are such clearly, you see even this, on the image that's up on the screen here, this gentleman in the top right, lost at the end of week 5. This guy clearly has lost like a bunch of weight. So, is this additional friction, appropriate? Anyway, so this person is celebrating and getting social support from this forum about that. So I guess, Mike, why don't you jump in and maybe kind of like just share a bit, just very briefly, about some of the science behind GLP-1s to set a frame for the other stuff we're going to talk about.
So the GLP-1s, what they are, glucagon-like receptor agonists. So they act. So there's two. I guess you could call them not competing, but everything biologically has, the goal with all the chemical reactions that happen in your body is to achieve or get as close as possible to equilibrium. Generally, that's where you want to be. Equilibrium is when you're healthy, you're fit, everything's functioning normally. When it comes to hormones and certain even neurotransmitters, cell signaling in the body, you see a lot of times these two different, for example, peptide hormones in this case, that do opposing things. So insulin and glucagon are the two peptide hormones that are directly involved in the whole the uptake of insulin from the blood, and or uptake of sugar in the blood, and the release of sugar into the blood. So insulin kicks in after you eat. When you eat, especially if you have carbs, your blood sugar is going to increase, and your cells need sugar. Is the most basic unit of energy that your cells use to create energy. The insulin is released and you eat, and it takes the sugar out of your blood, and it's metabolized in the cell as energy. And when you have diabetes, there's an issue. There's type 1 diabetes, which is something I believe is autoimmune. Your pancreatic beta cells actually don't produce insulin, so you have to inject yourself with insulin. Type 2 diabetes is what we're focusing on here with these medications. It's insulin resistance. So your blood sugar basically levels are resistant to whatever amount of insulin is being released into your body. So the sugar staying in your blood, and there's two issues with that. One, it's going to be eventually stored in your body and build up as fat. And when you have too high a blood sugar, there's a series of events that leads to what's called ketoacidosis. Like, you're going to have your blood acidity pH is going to be way off, and that could be very dangerous. So to get back to GLP-1s, the other side of insulin is glucagon. When you're starving, your body sends messages to your different parts of your metabolic pathways to say, like, I'm starving. I don't have access to food, so I need to pull some sugar, which is my unit that gives cells used to create energy. I need to get that somewhere. So glucagon is released when you're starving to pull sugar into your blood and then distribute the cells. So GLP-1 receptor agonists are, like I've mentioned previously, glucagon-like. So it's a glucagon-like peptide receptor agonist. A receptor agonist means that when it acts on that glucagon-like receptor, it goes on, it's activating that receptor. Antagonist is the opposite. So it's making that receptor active. And this series of events that happens with these medications is that you're going to feel sad. You're not going to feel hungry because your body is using the current energy it has stored in the form of fat to make energy. And you're not going to feel hungry when the signals are saying, I'm not hungry because I have adequate sugar, adequate energy based on the fat reserves that are already available to me.
Okay.
So that might have been a long-winded thing, but
yeah. So hormonal agents, but yeah. So that's some of the context. So why don't we grab, I guess maybe the first TikTok, we'll kind of,
sure,
because there's a lot of people out there frustrated with this, I want to pick up on some of the nuances of it that can be anticipated and incorporated into a care plan, or just kind of like how you're going to navigate this. Let's go ahead and play that.
Just a really quick update that I picked up my last box of Wegovy. I called the Caremark and they still have not received the prior auth request for my continued coverage. So I'm like, ooh, my last box. Okay, I am gonna get approved. Still keep sending me the positive vibes, please.
There you go. One of the things that's remarkable about a lot of these posts is the anticipation, or the literal social community aspect that everybody expects from these things. It kind of makes me want to be in prior auth just so I can make new friends. So this is anyway, so this is very typical though. TikTok is awash with this stuff, and in fact, if you're one of these folks, it would be interesting to interview you sometime. If you want to get in touch, please leave a comment down below or email us. But yeah, I think the thing that's going on right now, and maybe we'll play the second TikTok as well. The thing that's going on right now, because it's 2024, is a reset to the new year. So there's both a re-challenge of your prior authorization, and then deductibles. So if your pharmacy deductible has not been met, and the obvious thing here is these are extremely expensive. I didn't say that up front, but Wegovy is $1,350 list price. Depending on your copay and where you're at with your deductibles, it may or may not be what you're paying, or depending on what your coverage is. But can you play that one?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just a post showing, Wegovy 1,300. Context for this, I was just like kind of public service announcement. This post 21 days ago. So yes, reminder, this is New Year, the second month of the new year, and many private health plans, especially the case for HMOs, have a separate drug deductible that you have to meet before. So like this woman right here in this post is saying Wegovy 1,300 that she's paying, and that's with partial approval from United Health. This is definitely a case, I could just tell you off the top, like by looking at these numbers, that she hasn't satisfied her drug deductible yet. Right. Probably will be satisfied by next month with this drug. So yeah, you have to read that first.
Yeah, depending on the details of your group plan, these numbers could be all over the place. They could be as low as 0 or something. I'm not sure. But yeah, this person needs to pay the full amount until they hit that deductible limit, and then their insurance should kick back in. And then the other game that is really interesting is all the drug companies have coupons to create access, but these are chronic drugs. So your doctor, you're gonna go through this if you're pursuing treatment here, because you almost can't stop. And that first example we talked about, the person had regained 40 of the 50 pounds they lost. So their net loss after a year or something was only 10 pounds rather than the initial 50. So a lot of folks need to stay on them indefinitely. And that's where the friction for all the prior auth is coming from. It's not $1,300 one time. It's not $1,300 per month for a year. It's $1,300 forever. And that is, for a normal person who's healthy, the utilization in a year may only be, a physical checkup, maybe a flu shot, which is generally free anyway. And then if you're on any standard medications like a antidepressant or an ADHD medication, and then something like birth control, then normal OBGYN visits. But that that's less than $10,000 of care. So you're gonna, not only are you gonna double the baseline cost by putting somebody on Wegovy, you will in theory do it forever. Now a lot of people are stopping, and that's where some of these examples are interesting, because the insurance companies are pushing back and saying, do these other conservative treatments. Maybe, can you pull up the TikTok with Dr. Jenna? Dr. Jenna is very active on TikTok, and she's opening up about how the criteria is changing and evolving in kind of a seemingly arbitrary way. And what's going on there is the numbers are adding up very fast. So insurance companies have to react, and before they can maybe even scientifically or clinically completely justify what they're doing, they just throw in random barriers. So go ahead and play that.
Doctor may feel you need a medication, but it's your insurance company who's really looking out for you and will make sure that you meet all the criteria that they made up. This is something I've been seeing more of. I actually had a PA recently that required 6 months of a program, and it listed like 6 programs. One was Weight Watchers, but they wanted to know like which program it was. So I've not seen a 6 months requirement before. I would be very surprised if it had to be Weight Watchers though. Usually it can be any type of dedicated exercise or nutrition program. And really, by the time people come and want to start medication, most of them have done multiple different types of regimens and programs. Maybe they don't think about them as such, but they have. So here's your reminder to write those things down, bring those to your doctor. Not that you should have to prove that you deserve help, but they may need that information for the PA. Every insurance company will have their own clinical criteria that you have to meet before they will cover the medication costs for you. Clinical criteria should be able to be found online, or you should be able to call your insurance company and ask them to give you the clinical criteria. But this can be very helpful in trying to get something approved. For example, this random PA form that I found online that includes these clinical criteria says that the patient must have participated in 6 months of a comprehensive weight management program. Doesn't say it has to be anything specific, but just that they've done it.
All right. So that's the state of play right now. This is going to be a problem for you if a lot of people are seeking, they're not dealing with severe chronic issues. They're obese, but maybe it's not affecting them anyway. And a lot of the argument here is vanity, right? So the insurance companies don't want to pay for vanity. The entity that pays for your insurance, which is usually an employer, doesn't want to pay for vanity. It could be Medicare or Medicaid as well, which would be the federal government. But it's actually, there is actually, a good argument to be made that if you pay for it in 2024, this year, it dramatically reduces the likelihood of disease and the cost of disease 10 or 15 years from now. But that long-term perspective on your health data is actually really scarce and really hard to make use of. The data is kind of out there, but it's across, every doctor you've ever seen, and like dozens and dozens. Your data is with like dozens and dozens of insurance companies and billing processors and stuff. So the full story about what happened with you in the past and keeping track of it in the future is not really available, even though it seems like it's the type of thing that should be. And from a federal legal perspective, you actually have access to that data. You have rights to that data, but actually accessing it is actually not easy. And we talk about that a lot with regard to HIPAA and how HIPAA does and does not work and how it is and is not correctly applied. But Mike, maybe pull up the diagram. So what we're going to do is just share kind of a very simple version of prior auth, so you can kind of have this in mind, and this will visualize what Dr. Jenna was talking about. So the first one is you're at the doctor's visit, and I'm sure you've done this. You're looking over their shoulder. They're in a piece of software. That software is called electronic health record. An electronic health record is like it sounds. It's your information. It's everybody else's information. One of the main jobs, there's 2 main jobs or 3 jobs electronic health records have. 1, it's recording your history. 2, it is billing. So associating to your charges that you could go to your insurance, and then 3 is prescriptions. So step 1, doctor orders with the EHR. If you don't need a prior authorization, you'll immediately get authorized in the EHR, and the prescription will get filled at a pharmacy. But if you do need prior auth, you're going to have to submit a request. There will be a follow-up, and then you may need to submit additional clinical data if required. So step 5 here is one bubble, but the pain everybody's going through and talking about online is where this bubble becomes 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months to get the prior authorization approved. And it's getting longer and longer. The friction is going further and further up because the insurance companies are asking that you do things like use more conservative treatments. In fact, Mike was doing some research this week and came across some, I guess, positive news that supplements like psyllium husk, like Metamucil, are so your grandparents Metamucil, the orange juice. I don't know if you've ever seen Metamucil, but it's orange flavored. Metamucil psyllium husk is actually very, potentially has some of the same clinical efficacy that GLP-1s have, or maybe fiber in general. And so that could be so soon insurance companies may ask you to go on Metamucil for 6 months before you can get Ozempic or whatever. So an example Doc Jenner was talking about was Weight Watchers, and that's very classic to do some sort of lifestyle modification with exercise, which directionally is quite good, but a lot of times people have already done that. There's already data in their history, either in their medical record because it's part of a program that has been prescribed to them, or in third-party, new types of innovative data like an Apple Watch or that kind of thing. And telling that story about your medical history and bringing it to your first doctor visit is critical for getting through this process quickly. Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to mention like the whole Metamucil thing. So there's still commercials for it, and it was a little while back. I think this is right around when like the GLP-1s are really picking up steam and becoming popular. I remember a Metamucil commercial where they're actually advertising it, saying that. So just background, this is the Metamucil is working in the intestinal tract, completely different mechanism of action compared to GLP-1s acting on peptide hormones. That's an aside, but Metamucil in this commercial I remember seeing, it was actually advertising. It says that using Metamucil can actually, lower your A1C, reduce the risk of heart disease, in a proper usage. And the thing about that is, even though it's over the counter, you can't make those claims unless it's approved by FDA. So the fact that this commercial was able to make those claims about Metamucil means that they were cleared by the FDA to do so. So there's obviously some clinical data behind that to support it.
Okay, yeah, and I think you pulled up some of those papers actually that confirm that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we need to pull up now because I think they're a little bit off topic, but the idea of conservative treatment is being shoved forward in this experience. Is the technical jargon is care journey, so patient care journey. Your experience of getting access to a treatment or solving a disease or ailment is the overall journey. So in the care journey for semaglutide and GLP-1s, this is a very, very common experience. I'll put in a plug for Standard Care. We have a website at standardcare.us where you can collect your medical history, preempt some of these questions, and then use an AI to pre-screen your medical history, and it's all privacy preserving and cryptographically secured. And then we help you find clinics that will be a fit for you, specifically online clinics that are trustworthy and get good results on a consistent basis. So let's pull up one of the let's pull up that Cigna document. So we grabbed the most recent prior authorization criteria we could find for a major insurer. We got Cigna, and you will see it's a 15-page document. It's a pain for your doctor to read. They probably will never read it. It's a pain for their administrators to read. They'll probably never read the full thing. It's a pain for you to read. You probably never see one of these documents. Standard Care has an AI that's pre-trained on this exact document, along with CVS Caremark, United, Blue Shield, etc. So just kind of scroll down through that, and this is pretty recent. So this is up through November of last year, so it's just a couple months old, and you can see what they're doing is they're outlining the different criteria. And the other thing, if you'll notice at the top, the policy time frame is actually quite short, and the pace of revisions, the review date, you can't see it now, but the review date was July 12th, and then the first revision was the 24th, and then again in September, and then again in November. So they're more or less moving the goalposts on accessing this stuff almost every 2 weeks. It feels like week by week, probably for many doctors out there. Goes through dosing requirements, formulary, that kind of thing. Mike, I don't know if you had any comments.
Yeah, I do. And this kind of ties in some of those subreddit posts we talked about earlier. Comment on the definition of conservative treatments.
Yes.
So conservative treatments defined by a physician is actually what it is. Conservative treatments, a safe, cautious approach to, transitioning to new medication. Conservative treatments defined by insurance companies means cheapest treatments, because
Sure.
One of the subreddit posts we saw earlier, they're like, you got to try all these drugs. They list a number of drugs that the patient's formulary requires them to take or try first before they will cover, I think it was Wegovy. And the first line of drugs that it listed were amphetamines. So they call that conservative. You're already type 2 diabetes, increased with the type 2 diabetes comes increased, cardiovascular risk. Okay, let's just give you amphetamines. Let's increase your cardiovascular risk more before we give you a safer option. That's not conservative.
Yeah, there's at least 3 amphetamines listed there, which is kind of it's concerning. I've been on Adderall, and it's if amphetamines are wild. Like it's literally meth. It's a racemic isolation of methamphetamine, right? So it's clean methamphetamine, but still methamphetamine. It's like not. You got to get off that. You got to get off that stuff as soon as possible if you're on it. It's trash. So it's like, yeah, I think that's the key point, and obviously a lot of frustration you and your doctor are probably hitting is agreements about what is safe and what is conservative, or perhaps radically different, and not at the interest of your insurance company. But it's important. I think one of the insights we wanted to share here is that friction in prior authorization is a feature and not a bug for the real customer of the health plan. Who's the real customer? Mike, do you know?
Well, I am for my health insurance.
Yeah, but who pays for your health plan? Do you know? Or well, don't say it. Don't dox yourself. But whoever the health plan sponsor is for you is the real customer of the health plan. So the your employer, oftentimes it's an employer. In fact, large employers are have maybe some of the better coverage, depends on which company it is, but or more generous coverage. It's better is a misleading word, but more generous or more permissive coverage. But prior authorization is a feature for whoever's paying for the health plan. So it could be a union, it could be maybe a nonprofit, it could be different things. It's a benefit for them because they're going to blow through all of the pot of money that's been paid in from the plan members if they just let everybody who wants it, because this is a blockbuster drug. So people who are old enough will remember, statins like what was it, Plavix, and what was the big one, Crestor, whatever the big ones are on, and then also Lipitor. Lipitor is the huge one, right? Brand name, and then erectile dysfunction. So the little blue pill. What was that? That's Viagra, right?
Viagra.
So these are kind of the memorable blockbuster drugs for most adults living, and by all accounts, GLP-1 receptor agonists, Zepbound in particular, Wegovy in particular, are going to be the blockbuster drugs of this decade. So creating access, but for good reason, for good reason, they do seem to work, and they have miraculous impacts on people's lives. And it's not just vanity. It's, obviously reduction in diabetes, heart disease, but as we said in the beginning, addiction, which is an emerging indication for this stuff. It's not on label with FDA clearance yet, but that's incredible, right? Because we have an opioid crisis, we have a fentanyl crisis, obviously alcohol use disorder. So there's tremendous data that we've covered in previous episodes talking about that. That data still needs to be filled out. There needs to be a lot more, a more thorough clinical evidence plan and a meta-analysis to confirm that. But directionally, it kind of makes sense because these drugs affect satiety, and there's a lot of craving and, cravings issues that go into, substance abuse disorder. So anyway, across the board, incredible miracle drug. And then these drugs are on patent too, so they have pricing power. The pharmaceutical companies, primarily Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly, have pricing power for however long the patents are, which is, I'd have to look them up, but it's a minimum. Patents are 17 years overall from granting. I don't know when they filed them, but they have at least a decade, probably something like 15 years or so. No, probably so let's say 10 to 15 years on average for both of them to keep these prices at this level before a generic company like Teva or somebody will come in and recreate the exact active ingredient here. So this is a thing that's not going away. It's a thing that we need for health, from a health perspective. Most of Western society needs, most of the economically developed world needs. And then United States in particular, we spend 1% of our gross domestic product. So 1 in every 100 hours you work goes to pay just for one treatment for one disease, which is dialysis for diabetes. That's insane. So that's an insane, and then diabetes overall is like 3 or 5% of GDP. So like a huge portion of what you do every day just pays for diabetes. So they have, in a very cynical sense, these drugs may be underpriced, which is crazy, but the economic value and impact on public health is likely there in the long run. So we are here to try and help you get access to these drugs because we think it's very important, but do it safely. And that means be on a care plan with a provider that has a unique and differentiated care plan that works for your unique needs, where it's a single condition or it's a polychronic condition. That provider is very good clinically on both managing you and critically documenting your care. So they can't just be managing you, but they also have to be documenting it so it can go into this prior authorization appeals process, and then is very competent managing the back office processes here in order to get this stuff to you in a timely fashion and keep you on it, right? Because as we stated, you might get on it, you might have some loss, some results, but then you have a gap in coverage, new year, whatever happens, and then all of a sudden you're gaining weight back again, and that's not going to work either. So it's a whole kind of complex dance of your doctor, their administrative group, tracking the right information, you participating, you following the care plan, you documenting the information, and then doing that in concert with the cat and mouse game that the insurance company is playing. So that's it. Any closing thoughts, Mike?
No, I think I got all my grievances aired regarding the definition of conservative approach to care. So
I know this is a personal thing because you kind of gone through this with one of your care journeys as well. Yeah, and I think that's thanks for sharing that. All right.
Of course.
If you're out there, if you please like and subscribe. If you watch this, if you have questions, or if you have gone through this experience, please leave a comment below or email us directly at hello@standardcare.us, HELLO@STANDARDCARE.us. Just like our URL. Please visit our website. And that's it. Hope you have an incredible week.